Department of Emergency Management for them to fulfill the request. We made a resource request the very next day for 20 fire inspectors for damage assessment of commercial and residential buildings. That was approved on 9/28. We received those resources. They performed the commercial inspections and they were demobilized on 10/14. October of 22 through March of 24. So since October of 22, the next month after the landfall, we have sent thousands of emails to residents regarding floodplain management and substantial improvement, substantial destruction concerns. Thousands. On 10/2 of 22, the city made a resource request again for 10 inspectors for damage of commercial and residential buildings. That was approved. Also on 10/2, they came, performed additional inspections on commercial buildings, and it was demobilized approximately on 10/11. On 10/4, we put in a resource request for 10 building inspectors. That was approved, and approximately on 10/11, they were dispatched. On 10/4, we also put in a resource request for a temporary emergency building official. That was approved on 10/4 and advised that the state was vetting vendors. It was marked complete on 10/25, and the resource was never received. We put in another resource request for 10 more additional building inspectors. We provided a list of we were provided a list of building professionals. It was marked complete in the system. However, we did not receive those resources as well. On 10/7, we put in a resource request for 20 fire inspectors. That was approved, and they were on scene for a week through 10/14. During that time frame, the 2 weeks after the storm, all of these fire inspectors and building inspectors that came into the city, we had them inspect every single commercial building in the city. In fact, some of them came from out of the city, and in fact, when dispatched along Pine Island Road, actually went outside of the city limits into Matlacha and red tagged some of the buildings in Matlacha as being substantially damaged. We received numerous calls and complaints from Pine Island and Matlacha residents. Lee County followed up saying, why are you red tagging buildings? It's outside of your jurisdiction. We had to let them know we were just doing our job, notating substantially damaged, substantially improved buildings under the NFIP program, and it was a resource request that did the work for us. They were unaware of the jurisdictional boundaries. But it just goes to prove when we had the resources, we deployed them to do the work that we were supposed to do under the program. And in fact, we did go through every single commercial building. On 10/11, the city began accepting emergency permits at City Hall and a remote site. On 10/18, FEMA staff met with city staff face-to-face, having a conversation regarding the need for substantial damage determinations. That was the first time we spoke with FEMA, and we're understanding what we needed to do, explaining what we were doing, and how we were requesting resources to accomplish that goal. On 10/21, we sent out a press release urging residents not to complete work and explaining the 50% rule. We created and designated a web page and continue to maintain and update that web page today. Around the same time, FEMA had surveyors in the city or in Lee County documenting high water marks. We learned when they were completed for the entire county, Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel, Bonita Springs, Estero, and Cape Coral, through Lee County, that those FEMA assigned surveyors in the entire city of Cape Coral only performed one high water mark evaluation. We raised red flags and said, how is this possible? We need this data to understand where the water was so we know how to perform our job. On 10/19 and 10/23, through coordination with Lee County, UCF deployed and started setting high water marks in the city, weeks after FEMA surveyors did, and only to fill in the gap that we identified as a resource we needed to be successful. On 10/21 through 10/28, the city's survey division was given maps of high water marks and started surveying. So we ended up deploying our own resources to try and accomplish the goal. On 10/21/22, the city of Cape Coral advised residents who own a home before 1981 not to make repairs until December 1st, 2022. The 50% rule requires structures with damage exceeding 50% to be rebuilt, consistent with current floodplain elevation. We also put out during that same notice Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram feeds in order to get that information out there. On 10/27, we disseminated a press release regarding a town hall with FEMA reps. And FEMA had a town hall, there were posts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. On 10/31, we had the FEMA town hall post, and we delivered data to GIS and UCF on all of the high water inspections that city staff collected. On 11/3/22, we held a town hall and council chambers open to the public and aired live on Cape Coral television. The recording was posted on Facebook. We began distributing 100 yard signs and 7,000 door hangers throughout the city regarding the 50% rule. There was another FEMA town hall post on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and a recording of the FEMA town hall was posted on Facebook. On 11/14, the online permitting portal reopened for all permitting types. So this was not just emergencies now where you had to fix a roof or get electric back. This was for all permits. On 11/29/22, there was a council meeting post with the 50% rule on the agenda. It also went out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. In the December 2022 e-newsletter article, council approves article revisions to lessen the impact of the FEMA 50% rule. That was the change in the look back from 5 years to 1 year. We did expect with that change to lose some points under the CRS system because it didn't encapsulate multiple years of repairs or improvements. But the amount of points that were associated with that change, we did not anticipate losing a grade going from a 5 to a 6. So we felt comfortable we can make that change. We cleared those letters through FDEM. We cleared that ordinance and the text within it through FDM, floodplain management. And we, in fact, there was a change that was trying to be made on the podium that evening, and we recommended against it because we had not run that change through FDEM. I'd like to go to display 1. This is a resource request submitted on 1/12. So this is after the change and after our meetings with FEMA, the face-to-face, after all the education and outline. We knew at this point that we needed some assistance. This is a resource request for 8 to 12 inspectors and certified floodplain managers to assist with SISD, which is substantial improvement, substantial damage in specific areas of the city. I'm going to read some of this out. The request task name is Request for FEMA to support of substantial damage determinations. Here's the description. Cape Coral needs 8 to 12 building inspectors or certified floodplain managers to help with conducting substantial determinations, estimations using FEMA's SDE methodology and worksheets. We will need assistance for approximately 2 weeks or less to conduct the substantial damage determinations on approximately 1,200 structures along the hardest hit coastal areas and wind damaged structures. See maps and spreadsheets with locations. And we supplied with this resource request 5 maps and a list of all the homes we needed assistance with. A point of contact, our certified floodplain manager in the city, was given and his phone number. This was submitted on 1/12/23 at 9:59 in the morning. On 1/12 at 11:13 in the morning, a note was entered from Lee County. Per discussion with the EM director and ops, We'll proceed with requesting this from FDEM. Mutual aid assistance has been difficult to obtain, but attempts will be made. A week later, on 1/18 at 12:11 p.m., there was a response entered into this. It says, Mitigations Office of Floodplain Management is taking the lead on fulfilling the mission request. We are working with FEMA Region 4 staff in Branch 6 that have been deployed to Hurricane Ian. There is no need to request assistance through BOAF, which is the Building Officials Association of Florida, / the private sector. So we have confirmation from the state's Florida Department of Emergency Management that they're working with FEMA to assist in specifically getting us building inspectors and floodplain managers to assist in the substantial damage determinations. And in fact, we are just stand down on trying to seek any outside assistance from the BOAF or the private sector. I'm here to tell you today those resources have yet to be delivered to the city. We have never received a response or the resources we need to complete that, despite being notified that it was being worked on with FEMA. In fact, I instructed staff to put in another resource request today for this exact same request. On 2/14 of 23, FEMA questions the Lee County property appraiser regarding value determinations. On 2/18, FEMA provides the city with a list of 583 damaged properties. The city sends out its first mass mailing to property owners. Please show display 2. This is one of several letters, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it tells the property owner in the affected area, your property is in a special flood area, the structure may be subject to a substantial damage requirement if it's damaged beyond 50% of the value. I'm going to focus on the last paragraph. This is an informational letter. The purpose of this letter is to inform you of your obligations and responsibilities if your structure is damaged. The City of Cape Coral participates in the National Flood Insurance Program. Failing to enforce floodplain damage requirements can jeopardize our participation in the program, which could result in losing eligibility for flood insurance, disaster assistance, and federally backed loans and grants for our citizens and residents. This is one of several mass letters that we sent out. This one was sent specifically to 583 damaged properties that FEMA notified us that were damaged in the city that they observed. Display 3. In March of 23, we sent out a second mass mailing to the same 583 property owners along the Caloosahatchee River. These were selected from FEMA teams that surveyed damaged areas in response to the city's request for damage data. On 3/7/23, FEMA staff meets with senior city staff to discuss the post-disaster substantial damage compliance. Display 4. On 3/15, we sent out a third mass mailing to the 583 property owners. On April of 23, letters were mailed to condo unit owners near Atlantic Court and Victoria Drive. 95 properties, 419 condo unit owners. On 6/8, display 5, FEMA requests information from the city regarding permit data. This includes lists of identified substantial damage or potential substantial damage structures, list of demolition permits, copies of permits or repairs in the special flood hazard area, work in the special flood area, and an explanation of substantial damage operations. This letter was sent to Mayor Gunter. Mayor Gunter's office forwarded on to us, and we responded to FEMA on 7/6. In response to FEMA's June 8th request, the city provided the requested information, principally the list of 25,000 plus permits that were issued in the special flood hazard area through the date of the transmittal. FEMA acknowledged receipt of the city's information. Display 6. That's actually display 9, but that's okay. Display 6 was the 4th mass mailing and an advertisement. Oh, I'm sorry. No, this is correct. Display 6 on 9/12. So this is now 1 year after Hurricane Ian. It is only a short time after Hurricane Idalia, but it is also 8 months after our request for inspectors and certified floodplain managers. This is FDEM seeking vendors to provide building department services. The Florida Division of Emergency Management is seeking vendors that can provide additional Florida qualified staffing to the communities impacted by Hurricane Idalia to assist with permit application, plan review, building inspections, and building official services. Services needed: Florida licensed building inspectors, Florida licensed plan reviewers, and so forth. The name of one of those contacts, Mr. Con Cole, is the same person in January who responded to our request for this very service, asking for help with FEMA SD inspections. This is a solicitation to BOAF, who is the same place that we were told don't seek help from. My belief here is that they saw they couldn't fulfill ours, and now the next storm, Idalia, they were actually soliciting to get the same services. I don't know if any of the communities that submitted the same similar request after us have to date received services, but to date, ours from January still remains unfulfilled. On 10/2 of 2023, letters were mailed to 1,453 property owners located south of El Dorado. On 10/26/23, FEMA notifies the city that floodplain tours will take place the weeks of October 30th and November 4th. Display 7. On 12/6/23, FEMA sends a request for information. The letter and attached information included a list of 238 properties which were alleged as having unpermitted work by FEMA teams during the floodplain tours that were conducted in October and November. So in December, they sent this letter. You can see in the middle, it says attaches a list of 238 sites. We have to provide them information in order to demonstrate our community's commitment to enforcing the substantial damage, substantial improvement aspect of the National Flood Insurance Program. Here's the documentation that they request, and I'm going to go through you our results that we responded with. If there was a determination that a structure was compliant based upon the review of an elevation certificate, we needed to provide that. If the community determined that the structure is substantially damaged or improved, we need to show them a notification letter sent to the home, an assessment calculation of the damage, permits, and the permit issuance dates. If the community determines the structure is not substantially damaged, we need to send over our assessment calculation, the permit issuance dates, the permit numbers, and the calculated damage versus the improvement percentage. And at the very bottom, there's a grouping called unpermitted repairs or improvements. And the only way to cure this is to show proof of an enforcement action and documentation based on our determination. Display 8. On January of 24, we targeted mailers to 54 property owners who are identified by FEMA as having alleged unpermitted work. Now that list started off in our letter with 238. And I'm going to go through for you now how we got down to a list of 54 to show you the diligence that we put forth in providing our response. The City of Cape Coral responded to FEMA's request on 110 and 111. Of the 238 alleged properties with unpermitted work, 29 of them were found to have been new construction with permits. So their team drove by a brand new house that was going up and alleged that they were unpermitted work. And if it wasn't, we had to prove to them how it wasn't. So we had to supply 29 new construction permits. 2 were in the process of demolition. We provided the permit numbers to FEMA. And 5 were not subject to substantial improvement, substantial damage due to being compliant with the floodplain regulations. Another 139 are found not to be as substantially improved or damaged, with permit numbers and damage value calculations provided. Only 4 properties were found to be potentially substantially improved with substantial damage. We provided the damage calculations to FEMA. Staff placed permit holds for all 4 properties, and substantial damage letters were developed and sent to these property owners, 2 of whom later submitted independent appraisals to bring the structure damage under 50%, thus removing them from the substantial damage determination. 59 properties and structures did not have permit history. We're going to get to how we get to 54, but 59 had no permit history at all since Hurricane Ian's landfall. Staff requested evidence from FEMA to assist city staff in their investigations, but no evidence or field notes from FEMA's floodplain tours was provided to us to assist in our trying to get to an enforcement activity. Of the 59, 5 were found to have building activity. We sent our chief building inspector to all 59 of these properties to look and see, was there a dumpster? Was there a contractor? Was there a new roof? Anything new? Was there any indication of work being performed? We did find that at 5 of them. For these 5 properties, stop work orders were immediately sent to the properties, and letters were sent to the owners requiring them to apply for permits. We sent additional information letters to the remaining 54, reminding them of their duty to apply for building permits and to call the city with any questions. These 54 properties are deemed by FEMA to have unpermitted work, and this was used, we believe, to justify their actions last week on Thursday. Cape Coral's submittal of information in response to FEMA's request is summarized as followed. A modified copy of password protected sheet was sent to the city, filled out with permit numbers, damage percentages, acknowledgments of enforcement actions on certain properties. Additional tabs were added within the spreadsheet to identify structures that are not subject to SISD and separate Category 4 structures. Copies of the 4 substantial damage letters that were sent to the property owners that were discovered through review of the 238 were identified by FEMA and holds were placed on them. Copies of the 5 notices of unpermitted activities were sent to the property owners, and FEMA verified by inspections. Said property owners will respond to us with necessary permit documentation, thereby putting these structures in the permit record, and/or additional enforcement activities will occur on these properties. So we verified to them, if they don't respond to us or come in and pull the permit, we are moving forward with enforcement activity on the property. A copy of the letter sent by FEMA was dated December 6th, was sent to them for reference. And 5 elevation certificates for 5 properties that were not subject to SISD were compliant with the floodplain regulations were included in the list of 238. On 1/12, the day after we sent all this to FEMA, the information provided to FEMA was acknowledged by FEMA. However, from the previous request, they still had not provided us any information to help us with our 238, although we were able to clear a majority of them, and we're left with 59. When we sent inspectors, we put stop work orders on 5. We are now down to 54. On 1/30/2024, FEMA sends follow-up requests for substantial damage assessment calculations along with supporting documentation for 139 structures found not to be substantially damaged. The deadline for this was 2/2/24. The very next day, staff responded and provided the information requested to FEMA. On 2/14/24, conversations between city staff and FEMA staff results in provided FEMA with additional information on the following: the city's FEMA packet, which is required for any permit applicant performing structural work in the special flood hazard area. So we provided FEMA in a face-to-face meeting what we are doing to comply with the FEMA regulations. A sample filled out final page of the FEMA packet for one of the city's substantially damaged determined buildings. We used that to illustrate how the city reviews the FEMA packet, and a sample document sheet supporting a substantial damage determination in accordance with FEMA's SISD desk reference. On 2/26, FEMA requested information on documentation and a calculation of information provided by permit applicants. This information was provided by staff via email. On 3/27, FEMA requests city staff to attend a phone call to discuss the city's participation in the commuting rating system on the very next day. On 3/28/24, as you all know last week, senior FEMA staff contacts the city via conference call informing the city that FEMA is retrograding the CRS class to a 10, removing all benefits from the CRS despite our consistent response to all their informational requests. And FEMA alleged that there was inadequate substantial damage review, evidence of unpermitted work, and non-responsiveness to information requests. We completely disagreed with what they alleged on the phone. During the phone call, staff requested evidence of the unpermitted work and evidence of the non-responsiveness. FEMA stated they are going to provide guidance to the city in April. Display 9. This is a document put out by Florida Department of Emergency Management regarding the National Flood Insurance Program. And I want to get to the very bottom in the table. Well, let me even go back before that. It says FEMA is pursuing a CRS retrograde. This is under the determination. For 5 communities due to the large amount of unpermitted work, lack of substantial damage documentation, or failure to resolve known compliance issues, or failure to properly monitor the special flood hazard area. Documentation outlining this will be provided to these communities by FEMA. And if you look at the second grouping of cities, Cape Coral, it specifically references our 238 that they sent us, and they are again indicating that the percentage of unpermitted work in our community was 23%. Mathematically, that happens to be exactly 54, the 54 that we responded to them that we do not see any work. We had 58, we red tagged 4, and we asked them for help in providing some type of information regarding how they are determining that these 54 have unpermitted work. That is where we stand today. That's a whole timeline of all the information that went back and forth between FEMA, the numerous mass mailings that went out, the inspections that we put forward, all of the requests that they specifically sent to us. We did not miss one. We responded to all of them. So failure to, respond, failure to resolve, we have done everything that we think is available to us to do. In fact, we knew we were short resources, and in January of last year, put in a resource request to have additional inspectors on scene to help us go out in our special flood hazard area and actually red tag residential properties. It was acknowledged. We were told, do not seek assistance through the BOF, do not seek assistance in the private sector. And we still wait today for those resources to continue helping us from the same agency that put this document out. So you can understand the frustration of not only me, but all of my staff who have tirelessly worked to enforce the substantial damage, substantial improvement element in the community. I can tell you, I've spoken to my staff. They have put people in tears delivering the news of a home being over 50%. This has not been easy, but we have not been silent about any of it. And all of the Facebook posts and all of the mailings and all of the letters and all of the calculations that have to go through every single permit are proof that we have not done what FEMA is alleging we're doing, and we are not going to back down. Thank you for the time, Mr. Mayor. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you. Before I open up for council discussion, there's a few things I'd like to mention as well. I was a part of that conversation with FEMA on Thursday, and I can tell you that that was a very short and brief conversation. That conversation somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes long, probably. When staff or city attorney asked for any type of information, they were unable to provide that information. They said they would get back to us later. As we heard here tonight, there should hopefully be something in the month of April we'll get from FEMA. I know our city attorney had asked for some federal public records request on some of the discussion that and accusations that they made during that meeting. As a result of this, I know our city manager and staff worked tirelessly over the weekend, and I know that he told his staff that basically to stop everything, we need to work on this and see exactly why they're making the accusations that they're making. In return, I reached out since Thursday through the weekend up to today. I've spoken to our state representative, Mike G. Lombardo, 2 or 3 times a day. I know he's reached out to Federal Department of Emergency Management. I've always also have reached out to Congressman Donald's office on several times in the last 3 or 4 days. I actually was texting Congressman Donald's earlier today. I've had a conversation with Senator Rick Scott's office. And I will tell you that the congressman, and I'm going to read a little section that a press release and a letter that our state senators, and I'm sorry, not our state senators, but our senators, U.S. senators, and the Congressman Donalds and Strube had sent. Senator Rick Scott and Marco Rubio joined Congressman Byron Donalds and Greg Strube and sent a letter today to the Federal Emergency Management Agency Administrator, Ms. Criswell, urging her to reverse the agency's recent decisions to eliminate discounts for some national flood insurance program policy holders here in Lee County. Previously, FEMA offered NFIP policyholders in Lee County a community premium discount of 25%, which that is exactly what our city received, which will be eliminated for some policy holders if FEMA moves forward with its recent decision. Senator Scott has been fighting for years for reform for a broken NFIP and lower cost for Florida families. Senator Scott recently introduced Flood Insurance Affordability Act, which would require FEMA to offer Floridians an option to pay for flood insurance premiums monthly rather than a large lump sum each year. In August of 23, Senator Scott wrote a letter to the senior executive of the NFIP demanding transparency and accountability as FEMA's risk rating 2.0 was unfairly increased. There are flood insurance rates for millions of Floridians. make the coverage nearly unaffordable for working families who need it. Earlier this year in Congress, Senator Scott had reintroduced 3 bills, and those bills to reform the NFIP, which would help lower cost of the flood insurance. As we all know, to date, the 2.0 FEMA risk rating 2.0 stands, and that decision alone was an increase in all of our insurance premiums. I'll read you the letter that was sent today. That letter was sent from Rick Scott, our U.S. Senator, Marco Rubio, our U.S. Senator. His office called me today as well. Representative Byron Donalds, who's a member of Congress, and Representative Greg Stupi, who is also a member of Congress. And I'll read the letter that they sent to the Honorable Miss Criswell, who's the administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Dear Miss Criswell, or Administrator Criswell, we write regarding the Federal Emergency Management Agency's recent decision to retrograde Lee County, Florida's National Flood Insurance Program community premium discount pursuant to the community rating system effective October 1st, 2024. The retrograde of the NFIP premium discount is yet another unforeseeable challenge for Lee County residents who continue to fight and recover from Hurricane Ian. In the wake of the disaster recovery and skyrocketing inflation, Lee County residents now face even a higher living cost as a result of this decision. One thing that hasn't been said, we know this will probably be about an $8 million impact to Cape Coral if this goes forward. We urge you to immediately conduct a thorough review of the decision, honor the original discounts, and meet with local leaders to remedy any issues and keep NFIP discounts in place. Since Hurricane Ian made landfall in Lee County and caused widespread devastation in Southwest Florida, we have fought to deliver relief to Florida families and businesses and ensure a rapid recovery from this deadly storm. While we appreciate FEMA's quick response and the immediate aftermath of the storm, we are discouraged by recent actions from the agency. FEMA recent decision to lower discounts and raise premium for some NFIP policyholders in Lee County is liable to create yet another unacceptable rise in costs for Southwest Florida families and businesses still recovering from Hurricane Ian. That's a catastrophic for their financial stability. It is critical to the livelihood of the Florida families and businesses that FEMA does everything needed to work with local leaders to ensure further cost increases do not take effect. And again, that's signed by Senator Rick Scott, Senator Mark Rubio, Congressman Donalds, and Congressman Stupi. And I've talked to Congressman Donalds, and he has pledged that he will fight along with Rick Scott and Senator Rubio and Congressman Stupi to do whatever it takes to make sure that there's at least due process. As you heard our city manager tonight, the theme on the phone call the other day was, we're sitting back doing nothing. But as you heard tonight, that's clearly not the case. So we're moving forward. We're going to diligently work through this. I will work with the other elected officials at the state and federal level. I know the city manager, and I'll be in constant communications with him because this could be another catastrophic event. It's unfortunately that we had a Category 5 hurricane, but this could cause other families not to even be able to live in their homes just because of the cost of premium. So something that we're paying close attention to, and we'll be really diligent working with FEMA and all of our representatives to make sure this doesn't happen. With that, I'll open it up. Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. City Manager, I can just applaud staff and your office for the work that you did, not only the work that you did, but the amount of documentations there that we need at a moment like this. And so to have the documentation we have and have it organized in the way that you do to fight the fight, hats off to you. I have a question as it relates to existing policies, and you may or may not know the answer to this, may or may not have gotten into it yet. But recently they implemented an 18% cap on increase in flood insurance premiums, that in any 1 year in an existing policy, policy can't increase by more than 18%. It sounds like this would break that rule, being that it's 25% loss of savings, so to speak. Do we know at all whether that 25% removal of discount would disregard the cap that was put in place for an 18% increase?
I don't have those details at this moment. I would only be speculating that an increase in the premium is not the same as a discount. But we will, as we learn more about what they intend to do, as of today, all we have is a verbal notification. We don't even have the details of what it's going to involve. So we're still waiting for that letter. We're trying to meet with them even beforehand. But we will see if we can get some answers to that question.
That's great, because just for overall solvency of the program, premiums on newly issued policies were increased tremendously. And so for those purchasing homes that required one of these policies, they were having to pay full boat. And that premium was that 25% discounted premium. Homes that had already been in place prior to the increase for solvency of the program were the ones that would have gotten a major impact from that increase. And that's why they put the 18% cap on increases to existing policies over the number of years that it would take to reach the new premium levels. And so certainly the removal of the 25% discount would be catastrophic, but then if it also lumps on top another 18%, we literally, could be looking at 40, whatever it be, 43% increase in flood insurance premiums. So I think those two factors put together, I think as our legislators are fighting for us as well, I think that is, more fuel for our fire, so to speak, that this would be extremely catastrophic. Thank you.
Councilmember Carr.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to staff. Mike can't say enough about the hard work that you articulated tonight from the beginning after the storm right up to today and beyond, I'm sure. Also, Mayor, thank you for all your efforts with the state and federal legislators. I'm sure that's going to help us a great deal moving forward to get everybody on the same page. It seems excessive that if they're basing their decision on 54 properties, which is what it seems to sound like, granted we don't have all the information yet, but just given the number of permits that you said we were talking about after the storm, over 20-some thousand, and they're breaking it down to 54 homes, that it seems like an excessive penalty. I don't know if that could be something we also ask questions about. Why the jump by 5? Why not an incremental decrease or imposition of a penalty? But it just seems excessive. We're all going to feel this, I'm sure, as we move forward. But anything we can do to support your efforts, we're here. Thank you.
Thank you. We agree. One of the things what I didn't say is, for the community, we fully intend to continue doing all the things we do annually, weekly, monthly to earn the level 5 rating. So it's not as if they're retrograding us, so we're just going to stop. We're fully committed to the program. If there is something out there that 53 properties that we have no indication have work that they it seems to us that 25,000 permits were only as of a specific date. We've issued way more than 25,000 permits in the special flood hazard area, and we're looking to quantify that. If we can get a meeting with FEMA on all this to show them the percent of properties in the entire area, the quantity of permits, which means how many times we've been to the homes inspecting them. Yeah, so if there is some possibility, obviously we agree going all the way back to a 10 makes no sense. We're going to be doing all the things we would have needed to do to get to a 5. Is there no recognition, we just won't know until we have an opportunity to, one, even get acknowledgement that we can have a meeting, and then whether or not they're going to allow some form of appeal or some other, decision is still something else unknown at this point.
Yeah, and I will say, from Thursday to today, this is, there's been a lot of individuals putting in a lot of hard work, and I'd like to reiterate to staff, I know I was a part of some of those meetings and discussions, so I appreciate everything that staff and our city manager has done up to this point as well, and reaching out to her. What's a little more comforting to me is our federal legislators they have our back, and they're willing to fight the fight. And I know Congressman Donald's, his quote was, "We will utilize any available means that we have to fight the fight." So I think that's extremely important, not only for our city, but Lee County as a whole, because they understand and don't agree with what happened, and they have their back and are willing to fight for us. So I think that's great news for us, great news for the community. This is a very ongoing issue. Every hour we're getting more information, and as this week and the next several weeks move forward, I know we'll even get more information. So my understanding, Mr. City Manager, correct me if I'm wrong, we are going to hopefully put something on our webpage that the community can go to and get periodic updates. Is that correct?
Well, first of all, we intend on putting all this information out there so that it's available, that some stuff is protected.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a substantial improvement, substantial damage page now, and we're going to continue to use that page to put out information now on this NFIP situation. I do have a request of the council that I need to make tonight, specifically 2 items, and then I know the city attorney has one. The first request is that in my meeting yesterday with the city managers that are affected, as well as the county manager, as well as all the PIOs and their legal counsel, our legal counsel, we would like to begin writing letters and statements requesting meetings jointly from all 5 of us. I would like for permission from you all to sign on behalf of the city, or if you would like to designate also a council member or the mayor to sign, but to show FEMA and FDEM that we are diligent in trying to seek resolution to this. We'd like to do that jointly. So one request is to allow me to sign on behalf of the city, and also designate a council member or the mayor to sign. And then lastly, if we are successful in getting meetings with FEMA or FDEM on this, I do think it would be beneficial to have one of you all attend those meetings. And so I would like for you all to designate somebody that on short notice I could, let's say we get a meeting tomorrow, that I could reach to and say, we're having the meeting tomorrow, they're coming in, or we're flying out. So I'd like to just make sure we have somebody assigned for that as well.
I'll make a motion that you and the mayor are authorized to sign on our behalf moving forward. I think it's appropriate for the 2 of you to sign, just to show the legislative side as well as the management side.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second for discussion.
All right. With that, I've got several lights on, so I know Councilmember Hayden hadn't had the opportunity to speak, so I'm going to go to him. And then I guess after his discussions, then he can weigh in on the request that the city manager made.
Yeah, well, on the latter first, yes, would support the letter going out, having you and the mayor sign it I think is appropriate. It's clear through all this that we've complied through a lot of documentation on this, except for the 54. We're waiting for direction. I think what's most distressing is all the letters we've sent wanting help, and resources were never sent. You know, at the time, right after the hurricane, FEMA even changed the flood maps, putting more of the city in flood zones, requiring flood insurance. So we had that issue to face beyond what we're facing now. There was a date thrown around, and I'm assuming as quickly as they did this, they could add just as quickly as undo it. But I keep hearing, well, the next time you can apply or seek this discount would be 2026. I'm assuming we're hopeful that well before that, based on the evidence that we've provided and whatever the determination is on these 54 homes, which is incredibly unfair that they've taken away that rating. But is this 2026 date that's been thrown around of concern at this point, and how that's going to move forward?
I want to be really clear with this answer. The only thing that is of concern to me is making sure that this decision is reversed.
Yeah. Now.
I'm not concerned about 2026.
Right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2026 is a discussion for another topic. I have not received a letter from FEMA yet indicating that how long we would be out of a Category 5. But my only concern for the community and the businesses today and our residents.
And I think we have to be relentless in that pursuit, and help that we get from our congressmen and from the senators, I think only adds to that. Letters that can be sent, I think only helps with strengthen our case for what needs to be done immediately with this city, the other cities, the county. Obviously FEMA has not fulfilled their obligations really at any level, and made this very difficult for not only the city, but for its residents, and made this very costly for them. So we'll support the letter, appreciate the efforts from staff and your diligence on all this. Thanks.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. I am typically an all for one and a strength in numbers guy. I'm a little concerned. I think anyone would be impressed with the documentation and the work that we put into trying to get the help that we needed and abiding by the rules that we were expected to abide by. Do we have any indication that the other cities that are on that letter have the same type of diligence, one, conducted, and two, documented in a way that we will complement each other working as a group versus potentially reducing the seriousness with which that entire group brought to the matter if we bind together?
I am aware of one city indicating they did not receive a letter. So I can only presume that they didn't respond to something they didn't get. But I have no other indication that en masse, all 5 of us did not respond to what was requested. But I do know one city manager in a previous conversation said they did not receive one of the letters. And I only can presume, I didn't ask. Does that mean you didn't respond? But I presume they didn't, at least to one of the letters.
Okay.
Councilmember Welsh.
Yeah, I think my thoughts are quite aligned with Councilmember Steinke's. And I don't mind, five coming together and going forward as one. But I think with the amount of time and effort staff has put in the amount of documentation that we have, I don't think that's the only letter we send. I think we need to send a letter as Cape Coral, signed by both you and the mayor is fine with me. But then if the other municipalities want our help, which is what it seems like to me, I don't mind signing on the line with them, but I don't want that to be the only documentation set. I want the efforts and stuff made by our city to stand out first. So send our letter first, and then we can co-sign with everyone else to have more strength. That would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree totally, with that approach. I think it's a two-pronged approach. I think, first of all, we got to take care of our own and make sure that we have the documentation as our city, because our city is the one that's getting the 25% taken away. So we have no clue on how the other municipalities or the county, how much documentation that they have. And even though we can come together collectively as a region to fight this with our state and federal legislators, I think we have to make sure that we take care of ourselves first to make sure that we are providing as much information to make the argument that, hey, we shouldn't get this. Some of the other cities may not have that argument. I don't know. So I think a two-pronged approach is definitely the right thing to do. And I just want to say one last thing to put this in context. And I looked up today, how many residential dwelling units do we have in Cape Coral?
4,000?
100,056, I believe is the number. And we're talking about 54 houses. So I think that's a very important number to soak in, to realize there are 54 questionable houses. They're trying to do it a blanket approach. I can tell you right now, we've already seen a few of them that are on the MLS that are up for sale that nothing's been done to them. But that's another story. But 54 out of 100,056 residential dwelling units. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands the magnitude. I had heard one council member mention, why such a heavy-handed approach when we're only talking about 54 dwelling units? And we will definitely dive into those 54 units to see exactly what's going on with them. Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes, I'm for, I don't want to repeat, I'm for a two-prong approach. We don't know the information of what the other communities have done, and so I don't want to repeat. So I think we should look out for our city first and help our neighbors as well.
Mr. City Manager, I know you said the city attorney has a request, but I want to go back to you first.
Well, you have a motion on the floor. I just want to make it clear that my request was only that we join in with the letter. I'm in full support of sending as many letters independently as possible. This was just getting approval for us to work with the county on a letter and trying to set up some additional meetings. We can send as many as you all want every day if we need to. Just Cape Coral.
Councilmember Long.
Just to really beat the horse, I don't think that it's critical that we hitch our horse to that particular wagon if we've got all of what we need in order to supplement our argument. So I just want to be clear that we're talking about the letter that you're saying that the motion is on the floor for to approve, that's not to be construed in any way, shape, or form, or that you'll use your judgment to make sure that it's not construed as a one-for-all type of argument where we fall or rise, I guess, so to speak, with that ship.
I will be keenly aware and observant of what's happening and as information unfolds, and I will make sure you all are advised if there's any issues that you need to know about.
It just needs to be very specific to that point that this is not to be interpreted. I know it can't be construed like that in the letter, but when our discussions with FEMA, that we're not in any way a unified approach with regards to going how they target or lift what has already been done as far as the entire region. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention also, this isn't just a one-time letter and we're done. This is going to be an ongoing process. So there could be a multitude of letters. Very, very fluid issue here that we've been working with the last 4 or 5 days. I know that's going to continue. And I'm sure, I know I will, but I'm sure the city manager, any type of letters that are sent out, we'll make sure all of council has a copy of those letters, just like any other request that any of us make, where we're all are provided that information. Councilmember Stanky.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point and make a clarification. Each one of these municipalities we're talking about, they are all rated separately. So it's okay that we address this as a group in the hopes that fairness is applied to all of the cities. But that's not to say that the same change that's being requested will necessarily be applied to every one of the cities, because every one of them will be granted a discount based on their own methodology of applying NFIP requirements. So I join in agreement that I believe it needs to be a two-pronged approach, and based on what we've done, what we asked for, and all the documentation we have, that we go with all that we've got to get the full amount of discount that they're taking away from us back.
Yeah, and lastly, I've asked staff to, once we compile all this information, I want to make sure that we forward all of the information that we have to our congressmen and our U.S. senators, so they're well aware of the issues in the city of Cape Coral and what our argument is. So I think that's important as well. I don't see any other discussion. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Gunter,
Aye.
Hayden,
Aye.
Long,
Aye.
Shepherd,
Aye.
Steinke,
Aye.
Welsh,
Aye.
Carr,
Aye.
Cosden.
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Mr. City Attorney, first, before I go to you, I want to go back to the city manager, make sure he's completed. And then we'll go
The
to
way I understood the motion, it was for you and I to be able to sign the letters that we send out. That was on behalf of the group. Is it also your intent that the mayor and I sign any individual standalone letters that were just discussed as a bifurcated process?
Yeah.
I see you. Okay, and then lastly, if we are successful in getting meetings with Representative Donalds or Senator Scott or Mike Giambardo, is it also your intent that the mayor would join in those as well? Okay, I'm clear. Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney.
So at this point in time, while there is a diplomatic approach or somewhat of a diplomatic approach in order to reverse the course of FEMA, I am asking on behalf of the city of Cape Coral, as the city attorney's office and the city attorney, in the event that that fails and that there's a requirement for a legal action to be initiated, that I be given that authority for that legal action, either with our counterparts at the county or the city or individually, in the event that there is an avenue to pursue based upon my understanding of where things may have gone or where they may not gone. Based upon the timing, it may be an issue of a concern where we may have to move quickly. So in that regard, I would ask you, I'd certainly apprise you of that, but I may have to move quickly in terms of initiating any type of legal challenge regarding the actions of FEMA for this matter. So that would be my request to you, and I would ask for you, if that is what you want me to do, then I would ask for there to be a motion authorizing me to take whatever legal action is necessary in the event that there is, in fact, an inability to resolve this matter administratively. And that would be done either individually and or with our municipal and county counterparts.
Thank you. And also, I think it's also worth mentioning, I believe your office has already sent a federal public records request on some of the information.
We have, and it's quite perplexing, to say the least, that FEMA doesn't seem to know what it is that they're doing or the documents that they have. It's rather infuriating, to be frankly honest, but we won't go into that here. But it is, in fact, it's a head scratcher that they don't even know what list that they sent to us of the 238. So we're dealing with that and partially in an appeal process because of their inability to arguably expedite the process of providing those documentation so that we could formulate the appropriate response and deal with this matter, at least on an administrative side, before it turns over to a more legal dispute, which arguably I don't want to do because I don't want to jeopardize the efforts that are happening with the administration and our counterparts.
Yeah, I think it's pretty ironic that we ask for a federal public records request, and then in return, we get a phone call, could you please provide the documents that we've given you up to this point? So I thought that was definitely the head scratcher. Councilmember Carr.
I was just going to make the motion for what the city attorney requested and go one step further. Basically, I would say anything that needs to be done both from the city manager's side and the city attorney's side, we should authorize their judgment and then to come back when appropriate for any approvals needed by us. But I don't want to leave anything on the table. I think whatever's necessary as you go forward that you feel is necessary to make this go away, to do it. And if approvals are needed, you know when that occurs and then bring it back. But that's the motion I would make.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right. That'll open up a discussion for that topic. Councilmember Stanky.
Thank you. I was going to ask before the motion was made, if it would make sense for, in our weekly one-on-ones to have opportunity to talk about what the legal basis would be, what actions would be necessary, and there's not get into all this now, but to kind of understand what authority we're giving and to what extent it could be utilized and when certainly I would believe we'd want to be prepared to take whatever action necessary, but at what stage should we be prepared to do that if in fact we're trying to get it done through, if you will, civil and non-judicial means, then I'd like to know more about, what would the attack be? What precedents are there where other municipalities have done this before we whack the beehive too early? I personally would like to have a little more conversation on that before I just give a carte blanche, go for it, which is what it sounds like we would be doing with this motion. So,
I mean, I have no problem, and I think you all know that I try to notify you all as quickly as possible in the event that there's something that's going to come to fruition, and certainly I don't have a problem doing that. That's how I operate. So it's up to you, however you want to do that. If it's something that you want me to notify you before we take that action, I have no problem in doing that. I just want to be able to have enough flexibility where timing sometimes is of the essence. So however you want to.
Councilmember Shepherd.
And I apologize. And certainly, as evolves, both the city manager and we're going to know where this is going. And we'll be formulating a plan of addressing it if it stems to the level where there is judicial intervention that we're going to have to initiate. You'll probably know that well in advance. And you'll probably know well in advance what those legal theories will be. But I certainly understand your concern.
thanks.
Councilmember Shepherd.
The only thing I would like to add is because of the importance of the process here, and we voted that the mayor go along with our city manager in any emergency meetings or anything that come up on this topic. I think it would be in order as well to say that if for some reason, Mayor, that you couldn't be there, that Mayor Pro Temp would just have that, so we don't have to worry about that. I mean, I know you're not one to miss meetings, but
I haven't missed one in 6 years, but that's good. I'm sure Mayor Pro Tem would be happy to step up to the plate.
It would.
Just to
I
say,
don't think it's
just to have
necessary.
it covered so we don't have to come back later. Who knows? Yeah, you just don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm okay with, I think I could probably speak on behalf of all of City Council. I think the form of communications that we get from the city attorney or the city manager is very well. I think we all have a great relationship, free-flowing amount of information. So there's no doubt in my mind if there for some reason was a time restraint that an action had to take or had to occur fairly quickly, there's no doubt in my mind that our 8 phone numbers would be ringing fairly quickly to make us apprised of exactly what's going on. So I'm comfortable with the motion the way it is. Councilmember Welsh.
I'm comfortable either way. I see nothing happening within the next 2 weeks. So if it gives Council Member Steinke some time with a one-on-one, I would also like to know a little bit more information too. The government doesn't do anything in 2 weeks. So we could have this motion at our next regular meeting, and that would give us plenty of time to have that discussion in private. So I'm good either way, giving them the authority now or waiting to our next regular scheduled meeting. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke.
Based on, further conversation after my statements and the reminder of how frequently we get phone calls on things that are time is of the essence, as long as that's understood and those calls would be made with, this issue, then I can be comfortable with it as well.
And I have no problem that the minutes will certainly reflect, and I'm letting you know right now, the city manager and I will be calling you, apprising you of what will probably happen, relatively quickly. That's a guarantee, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no other lights, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Gunter,
Aye.
Hayden,
Aye.
Long,
Aye.
Shepherd,
Aye.
Steinke,
Aye.
Welsh,
Aye.
Carr,
Aye.
Costin.
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, any other discussion on this topic, either Mr. City Manager or City Attorney?
Nothing from the city attorney's office.
I have nothing. Thank you. Thank you
All
for
right.
the time this evening.
Thank you. Okay, item 7 is approval of minutes. Do we have a motion regarding the minutes of the regular meeting of March 20th, 2024?
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9D is new business. We moved the Youth Council quarterly report up into the agenda to now, and I will turn it over to the council liaison, Councilmember Costin.
Thank you, Mayor, and I will turn it over to the Youth